Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Maynard. Happy birthday to you. Hope you have a wonderful day.
And if not, stop in Tuesday.
We had it last night,
Chicken, all right. Chicken last night.
all the way from KFC.
All right. Take the cow off. This yet. There you go. All right. So they are completing our quarters into quarter two. But I'd like you to stand as you're able for our hymn. Let us break bread together, and we'll do verses 1 through 3. Gospel lesson this morning. So Luke 14, verses 25 through 33. Now large crowds were traveling with Jesus, and he turned and said to them, "Whoever comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, and even life itself, cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry the cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. For which of you, intending to build a tower, does not first sit down and estimate the cost to see whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation and is not able to finish, all who see it will begin to ridicule him, saying, 'This fellow began to build and was not able to finish.' Or what king, going out to wage war against another king, will not sit down first and consider whether he is able, with 10,000, to oppose the one who comes against him with 20,000? If he cannot, then, while the other is still far away, he sends a delegation and asks for the terms of peace. Therefore, none of you can become my disciple if you do not give up all your possessions." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Let us pray. Gracious and merciful God, may the words of my lips and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Well, you know how crowds can be. They can begin with just a few people, and then they can grow very quickly, especially if they hear a celebrity is nearby. And of course, in these days, a simple tweet or an email that goes viral, and it can produce a flash mob in a matter of minutes. When it comes to crowds, the more people that gather, the more exciting it gets, until they're hollering and cheering, and they follow the famous person wherever he or she goes. We see that in the political arena for sure. We want to be in on whatever big news is happening. And it was kind of like that for Jesus. A lot of times he gathered with just his disciples or maybe with others at a dinner party. But here we see him in the public arena, and people notice, and people follow. Well, maybe they don't have a clue to where he is going or even what his purpose is, but they're excited to see what might happen next. The scripture doesn't really tell us what they were hoping for, what they expected, and maybe they didn't know either. But Jesus' reputation was growing, and I would guess most of them didn't want to miss anything. So they stayed with him as he traveled. And they were probably oblivious to any cost they might be asked to bear. Then came those hard words from the lips of Jesus. He essentially said, do you people have any idea what you're getting yourself into? Chances are they did not. Whoever does not hate father and mother, whoever does not carry the cross. Whoa, wait a minute. The excitement level drops a few notches. This might not be as fun as they thought it would be. So I can just picture some people making their way to the outer edges of the crowd, pretty anxious to get away from these harsh words of Jesus. Would I have stayed? Would you have stayed? We don't know how many left, disappointed that fun was over so soon. And we don't know how many stayed, because finally, someone important was asking something of them, requiring something of them, calling them to something beyond themselves. Now, I would like to think that you and I would be among those who wanted to learn more about Jesus' sayings, rather than leaving so that we could find something easier to do. But several years ago, Dr. Tony Campolo was the speaker at our School for Ministry, where about 100 pastors gathered for continuing education. And he talked about the decline of so many of our churches in the midst of an American culture that looks for entertainment and self-satisfaction above all else. And he told us what it is that inspires young people to really seek after God, to passionately follow the way of Christ. And he said, no, it's not entertainment, it's not food and drink and games, it's not even being a friend with the youth leader. It's not movies and the right kind of music and the chance to hang out with friends. What inspires young people to passionately follow after Jesus is a loud and clear call for them to matter in the world. An invitation for them to sacrifice for the greater good. A sense that they can and will and must make a difference in the world. Dr. Campolo said, challenge with their commitment and heart, with their ingenuity and compassion for the sake of the gospel. Young people don't shy away from that which is hard. They shy away from low expectations and apathy. And I think his teachings have remained true over the years. Some of us have been attending workshops about the church, and all of the studies show that the churches who are growing are those who expect a lot out of their members. In fact, before a person can become a member, they have to promise to be present in worship, to tithe a portion of their income to the ministries of the church, to attend a small group where they study and pray together, and to become involved in some kind of outreach ministry. But as our district superintendent told us a few weeks ago, the church is a funny thing. You can't make someone do anything. People have to commit themselves to God and to the community of faith because they want to, because they feel led to do so by God. So do you think there are limits to what we should ask of those who would follow the way of Christ? Are there limits to what Jesus should ask of those who would follow him? Hate father and mother? Really? Well, the word translated hate in this passage was used in Jesus' time as an expression of letting go of or detaching yourself from something. They didn't bring all the negative emotions that we hear today when we hear of a hate group or someone saying, I hate you. Instead, the crowd would have understood Jesus to say, unless you let go of your father and mother and give following me your highest priority, even above your own well-being, your own life, you cannot fully be my disciple. Unless you realize this journey you are on will cost you something, that others may discredit you, that your entertainment and your success and your being liked are not the highest priority, you will not be able to follow me. One author explains that this is because Jesus' way is ultimately a way of confronting the powers of the world that foster injustice, iniquity, oppression, racism, classism, and all the other isms that set us at odds with one another. Jesus' way is ultimately about being advocates for the poor, the homeless, the sick. Jesus' way is ultimately a way of challenging even religious authorities who stand in the way of love of God and neighbor as the highest values. And you can't walk that kind of path without planning for it. Without planning for how you'll respond when your family thinks you're radical and crazy. Without planning for how you'll talk with your family about what's most important to you. Without planning how you will let go of or hate all the things that might get in the way of you being faithful in the way of Jesus. Without looking seriously at finances and possessions to see how they might be preventing you from living for the sake of the world rather than for your own sake. A colleague and teacher of mine, Bill Cotton, writes this: Jesus is looking for those who have